Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Bible study for everyone. Today is day number 8, and so we are in Acts chapter 8. Once again, I'm Matt, and I'm going to be your facilitator today. So, Acts chapter 8 comes off the stoning of Stephen, and we were just introduced to Saul, who we know becomes Paul later on in the New Testament. But chapter 8 starts with Saul and him ravaging the church. Basically, he is persecuting the New Testament believers, the new church that's expanding. And it doesn't get much more into detail than that, but it's just showing that Saul was the key piece of the persecution of the New Testament believers at that time. We then see a couple stories about the expansion of the church. And so before we get into this, I want to share our word of the day. And that word of the day is going to be share. And the reason I say that is because Acts chapter 8 is a story of different people sharing the good news and people getting saved because of it. And this is how the new church grew. This is how the church today is so large, and there's so many people around the world who know about Jesus and the good news. It's because of these people who were willing to share at any opportunity that presented itself, or even opportunities that didn't present themselves. And we'll see that with the story of Philip. There's two stories that I'm going to get into. The first one is the story of Simon. And so Simon was a magician, and he is shared to by the apostles. And he goes up to the apostles because he notices that they have power. And he says, I want that power too. And Peter immediately responds to that question and says in verse 20, may your silver perish with you because you thought you could obtain the gift of God with money. And then Peter continues to share the good news. And it says in verse 24 that Simon answered, pray for me to the Lord that nothing of what you have said may come upon me. So Simon believed. The second story is the story of the Ethiopian eunuch that Philip preached the gospel to. And what I love about this is that in verse 26 it says, an angel of the Lord said to Philip, rise and go towards the south to the road that goes down from Jerusalem to Gaza. And he rose and went. And he runs into this eunuch where he ends up sharing the gospel to. And the eunuch is so touched by what Philip shares that the story says that in verse 36, as they were going along the road, they came to some water. And the eunuch said, see, here is water. What prevents me from being baptized? And he commanded the chariot to stop, and they both went down into the water, Philip and the eunuch, and he baptized them. And so my point here is this is a story of a church growing exponentially. And it all starts with people and their willingness to share. Peter and the apostles shared with Simon, a magician, someone who was very unlikely to come to faith. And then Philip listens to the angel of the Lord and immediately does as he was told. And he goes and shares the gospel with a eunuch who gets converted. And who knows what the ripples that had down the road. I mean, maybe you or I know Jesus today because of this eunuch or because of Simon. Who knows? The point, though, is, are we taking the action the way that the apostles did and that the new church did? Because who knows what our ripples will have down the road. So think about that today. Consider people in your life. Have you shared your faith? Are you willing when the opportunity comes up to share your faith? So that's number one, the same way the apostles did to Simon. And then also, are you actively seeking out ways to share your faith? The same way that Philip did? When God calls you to go speak to your neighbor, or go speak to your coworker, or go speak to a friend, are you taking the opportunity to share faith when it comes up? Or are you missing out? Let's consider that, and let's try to start sharing our faith the same way the apostles did as the new church started. And we'll talk next time. See you guys.